Jackspania channel. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button and hit that like button while you're at it. Before we get started with the K-swap of the Mazda B2300, a subscriber reached out to me and his wife's going through a tough time. I just wanted to say, Alicia, keep pushing. Andrew's there to support you. So trust in him, trust in God, and we'll keep you in our prayers. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started with the K-swap on the Mazda B2300. So I'm going to be showing you all the clips that I've gathered throughout the process. There may be some bits and pieces missing, but I tried to make it as detailed as I can without making the video too long. If there is a specific area that you're looking for, I did do individual videos of each thing. So I hope that helps. Browse the videos on the channel if there is information missing out of the video, but I hope you guys enjoy it, so here we go. Alright, the engine I went with was a K20A3 out of an RSX. Got it for $175 from the local salvage yard. I prefer the K20A2, but this will work in a pinch. I also got a 6-speed manual RX-8 transmission for $161, pretty good price. And everything seems pretty good on it, so that's what we ended up getting. But in order to pair that engine with that transmission, we needed a Collins adapter plate. It's $1,200, and it is exactly for what we need, RX-8 to K20. Now, this adapter plate is a K20 and K24 capable. Came with all the hardware labeled. It was a really nice kit. Highly recommend it. All the information is in the description. It's also a lightweight flywheel. I'm going to go ahead and torque all of this down and get it all to factory spec, and then we will stab it onto the transmission. And everything looks really good. It bolts up perfectly fine. So now that we've got it all bolted up, we can go ahead and pull the engine out of the truck. It is a 2.3 liter cast iron block, and this thing is heavy and bulky and just so ugly. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all that pulled out, and then we can put the new engine in. Alright, now that we got all of that in, I want to show you the mounting for the transmission. This back subframe piece here, the factory transmission mounts to that. You can see there's a bolt sticking through that's from the transmission. It actually lined up with the center hole, so that's pretty good. I also used some cardboard, made a template, and found some bolt holes on the frame and on the engine. Basically just marked the holes and then went ahead and drilled them and bent the piece of metal. So that way I can temporarily hold this in. I will be getting some professional mounts made by a friend of mine. He's really good at making things. So this will hold it all in place for the time being, but this will be improved later on. I also was able to cut the factory engine mount on one side and bolt it to the K-series. It's pretty crazy, but it actually worked pretty well, as you can see right here. But that's just temporary as well. But now we can release tension, the engine doesn't move. As for this drive shaft, the RX-8 one does not fit, but we will come to that in the future as well, once we get the engine and transmission all straightened as well. But now that that's in, we can move on to the bypass pulley. We will have power steering later on down the road, but right now it does not. So this is going in place of where the power steering would be. You basically get this in the link in the description. It's really cheap. After we get this little piece on, I actually went ahead and painted the truck with spray can. It's just grabber green. I think it was VHT or Duplicolor. They have the same basic paint, but basically did that on my other channel, the More Motorsports Garage channel. Link is in the description if you want to go watch the full process of that over on that channel. But yeah, moving on to the inside, I removed the carpet / rubberized flooring. Have access to the factory shifter location. It is an unboltable panel, luckily, and I went ahead and unbolted it. Now we have access to the transmission, and we can see how far back we need to cut. Basically, using the Sawzall, very carefully cutting back to expose the shifter spot. You want to make sure to be very careful here. After that, I made a template out of sheet metal and bolted it over that area. Sealed it up pretty nicely with some of this air ducting tape stuff. Works pretty well, it's metal on both sides. Then put the rubberized flooring back in, as you can see here. Cutting a hole for the shifter in its new location. And then putting the seats back in. These seats will be upgraded to racing seats. The factory rails actually work on aftermarket racing seats. You just have to do some modifications to them. Then moving on to the intake manifold. This is a rear-wheel drive intake manifold. I got it from K-Power. There's a link in the description. I don't see a way of doing the swap without it. So basically, go ahead and bolt that on. But right here, I'm going to go ahead and explain a few things. I went ahead and got a quarter-inch fuel hose, and hooked it up to the factory location using the factory fitting for the RSX fuel rail. I will be upgrading fuel rail later on down the road, but for right now, this is just going to work. K24 throttle cable, as you can see here. Basically put it on the outside, marked it with a Sharpie, pulled the throttle cable off, drilled the holes, went from the inside, pushed it out, put 10mm bolts and nuts on the inside and out, and it hooked right up to the factory throttle pedal, so that worked perfectly. And this is what it looks like with the throttle actually opening and closing. Everything works perfect. I'm going to go ahead and put the little cover I have right here on, and then we'll get started with the wiring. Okay, well there it is. It is all ran through there, so it'll be pretty waterproof once I finalize this little covering here. But yeah, it just runs right across there. I can easily zip tie this up out of the way. The exhaust off the turbo will come about here, run down at perfect clearance. Alright, as for the inside, we have the wires running through the firewall now, which is great. It's going through a factory location. This piece right here we're going to be using. This is a fuel reset. It's a little button, like if you get into a wreck or something, or you roll it or just hit a bump hard, this will trigger and it'll shut the fuel pump off. It's common in Fords, which you can see right there, it says Ford. This is basically a Ford Ranger. We're going to actually tap into this for the fuel pump, so that's going to be cool. It's just right there, so I don't have to go digging for the fuel pump wiring. We have Jackspania universal K-swap harness. This will be in the description. You can use this harness on any vehicle. You can even build a frame and put this harness on. As long as you've got a power and a ground, this will work. So this is going to be really good for this setup. I went through and already labeled everything. We have the positive right here for the fuel pump, so that we will actually be running up here into that. We have switch 12 volts, there's two of them, and then a constant 12 volt. Then we have a ground wire. It already has the wiring for the O2 sensors. It's a really nice setup. It already has relays and everything, so I highly recommend it. Link is in the description. I'm not sponsored by them, just trying to get you guys some quality good products. And it was fairly cheap compared to hybrid racing and other popular brands. So definitely go check them out. Okay, we've got the wiring ran. We have the red wire, which is our switch 12 volt. Got 2 wires ran into that. Our brown and our yellow from the relay side of the harness. Got those ran in there. Then we have this blue wire right here. That one actually runs to the C101 connector starter pin. I believe it's pin 16 or 17. And then we have the inline fuse right here, which is our constant. So now that we've got that hooked up, we have the green wire, which is the fuel pump signal. I have it tied into the, I guess that's a peach colored wire. I can't really tell. It's the wire from that connector right there on the firewall. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the key and we'll listen for our fuel pump. Okay, here we go. I had to go plug the battery in. There's the fuel pump. Awesome. So there's fuel pump. Now, moment of truth. We're gonna go ahead and try to give it a little bump. Well, there's starter, there's fuel pump again. That, I think, is a success. But yeah, we're gonna hook up all these colors. I'm gonna look at the chart and see which one goes to what, but you can find a K-series, K20 or K24, depending on what you're using, pinout on Google Images. You just go to Google Images and type in K-series pinout and browse through all of it. Either are showing you from this direction or from this direction, like that. So just be very careful, make sure that the wire color is right, because if you hook it up wrong you can fry the computer. But I'm gonna go ahead and get all this hooked up and put back. As for reverse light wiring, we have that big connector with the bolt in it again. We're gonna go to this purple, it's just a solid purple wire, solder a piece onto that, a wire onto that, run that all the way to your reverse switch on the RX-8 transmission. Okay, so that red wire runs along the frame and goes right here. And one of these wires, it doesn't matter which one, it doesn't matter if you put the power wire on this one or on this one. Just put it on one of these connectors and then it will go to the switch on the transmission, which is right there for the reverse lights. After it does that, it will come out of one of these wires and then run directly to this black and pink wire that's right here. It's usually in the connector. We can solder this up, electrical tape it, and then we will have reverse lights. I'm gonna take the CRV computer out of here and put the HON data in. Just like that. I'm gonna go to use VTEC pressure switch. I'm gonna click that. I have no speed sensor, so we're just gonna go ahead and click that button. Then we're gonna go up to the top right where it says multiplexer, click that and disable it. Then we have to go to VTEC and disable the oil pressure switch. That is for the multiplexer unit and stuff like that. So that'll upload the calibration. Then we'll click the lightning bolt to start seeing some live data. Click this display button. You can see TPS right now is at 6% without me touching it, and 111 to 112 with fully floored. So we're going to go to parameters to adjust that. Right here we have throttle, and we click that. We'll go to minimum reading, that's without touching it, so I'm going to click read. It says 6.8%. Go to maximum reading, click read while fully flooring it, 110%. So now we're going to go ahead and go back to the display. You can see before I upload the calibration it's still 6%, but as soon as I upload it, it should zero out, which it did. And there we go. Now the throttle is adjusted. Alright, now that I got that out of the way, we're going to move on to Jackspania's swivel thermostat housing for the K-series. This is a must-have for the swap, so I'm going to go ahead and explain a little bit of that, and then we will move on to other things. This one right here is where the temperature sensor would go. It just screws right in, but I plugged these up, and this one over here, it does not fit in, but the one that does fit here is a factory Honda cooling fan switch, so you could actually put one in there. It's really nice. I will be installing this, so let me show you where. So on my K-swap, back here is where the radiator hose inlet is. You can see that hole right there. That is where I'm going to be running this, mostly because it's really close to the firewall. The thread pitch is the same, and I can just take my wire, plug it right in like that, And then I will have cooling temp. I'm not gonna be using the sensor they provided, even though it is a nice sensor. I'll be using this Honda sensor right here, which is the temperature gauge sensor for a 1988 all the way to 2000 Civic D series or B series. This will tell the dash what temperature's on there. I'll be using this one instead of that one. It threads right in, so it'll be good to go. I got the TPS wired in along with the map sensor. I basically just extended the wires for the map sensor and made a custom little slim harness for it. I also extended the air intake temperature sensor right here, just 2 wires, extended it out, soldered all the connections. And on this one right here, I'll put on screen the wire combination that you'll need to run the connector for a B series or a D series throttle, and the wiring will run just like this. So that way you can actually wire it up, because there's not a lot of info out there on how to do it. There is some, but not a lot. So I figured I'd help you guys with that. But we'll go ahead and remove this intake manifold, move it out of the way so you guys can see what I'm doing, and we'll install the swivel neck. And we can swivel that piece around any direction we need it. So I'm gonna go ahead and bolt this in, and then we will try to swivel it and see which way we need it. We'll put the radiator in and the lower hose to see how far the swivel needs to be. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, well, before I tighten it all the way down, I need to get the radiator, the factory radiator in, see where the hose sits, get it to where it needs to be. Then I can go ahead and tighten it and everything will be good. So I'll go ahead and get the radiator in and we'll see where we're at. Alright, that's where it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. Alright, so that's the direction it needs to be, which is really good. So now I can show you the rest. Okay, so with the radiator and fan shroud installed, you can see there's an electric fan. It's a pretty big one. It's starting to take shape for sure. Okay, right here I'm going to show you the temp sensor. I have it on Jackspania's swivel neck thermostat housing. The ground runs from up here, goes all the way down to the sensor down there where it is connected to the cooling fan switch, which is just off of a 92 to 95 Civic. Then the other wire comes out, runs up along here, and there's an orange and white wire. That orange and white wire goes to a relay in the fuse box. Underneath the fuse box, you can actually find this orange and white wire pretty easy. Just tap into that, and as soon as the keys turn forward and it reaches the temperature for that fan switch, the condenser fan will pop on. And that's pretty much it for wiring up the fans. Okay, now that we got that done, I didn't get the entire video because I didn't know my camera wasn't recording for some of this, but this is the factory clutch master cylinder. Basically just pop that clip out and remove the factory master cylinder and all of that out. You will have to bleed this off the car. It's simple to take out. You just turn it and pull it and it comes out. But we have a solution for this. I tried to ghetto rig it. It didn't work well, but I ended up getting steel braided line and making it work. So here is that. All-Star braided stainless steel brake line. This is actually just a brake line, but it's also 3AN. And I ended up getting, I think, 38 inches or something like that. Should be more than enough. And then this piece right here, which is a Russell, there's the part number, I believe, 640281. And this right here is a T56 3AN clutch fitting. This piece will actually go right here, which there's a little tiny roll pin. We'll basically just push that thing out, tap it out, and then that will go there, allowing us to adapt the 3AN fitting. So I'm going to go ahead and put all this together and then show you how we bleed it. Alright, as for this little roll pin right here, I found an Allen wrench that'll work perfect. We'll just tap that out of there and then put the other fitting in. Make sure to pull the O-ring out because they like to get stuck. Put it in just like that. It didn't record the most important part, so I'm going to explain it real quick since I already have it all on the car already. Basically, I put hydraulic clutch fluid in the reservoir and bled it off of the truck. basically pumping up the slave cylinder till it pushed all the air bubbles to the top while moving the whole thing around to get any air bubbles to surface, because the way the clutch master cylinder sits is at an angle, so all the air bubbles get trapped up top, so you have to lean it like this so all the air bubbles go straight up. But basically connected the line on both ends, and we're at this point where we're going to put it on the truck and then bleed it on the truck. I'm sorry I didn't know that it didn't record. I can't be in front of the camera and behind it at the same time. I didn't know until editing, which is what I'm doing right now. So this is the next step. Okay, there's also this piece of plastic that usually goes around it, but I don't use this anymore since that's for the factory stuff for the truck. Basically, this comes apart and then you can pull it through the firewall. Got it up through there, and then you just twist it to lock it in place. And then it's all put back together. I just basically push that clip back on, and now it's ready to be pumped up and bled on the outside. Okay, I have my wife in there. She's gonna pump it up for me. Let's go ahead and pump it. Yeah, that thing's moving really good so far. That's way better than before. So I need to go ahead and make sure it's all topped off, and then I'm gonna go ahead and have her pump it up. So it's topped off, we're good to go there. So I'm gonna have you pump it up, go ahead. Hold it down. All right, now we're gonna crack it open. Definitely some air in there. All right, go ahead and pump it up now. Oh yeah, perfect. I think that's all it needs. There was some air, but we're gonna go ahead and bleed it one more time just to be sure. Now remember, whatever the brake fluid gets on, it will eat, so it eats paint. Go ahead and hold it. Yeah, there was definitely a little bit more air, but this should all be gone now. Go ahead and pump it up. Look at that thing move. Wonderful. There's no leaks. It's doing good. So that is officially done. I'm gonna go ahead and put the intake manifold back on, and then we'll go over some more stuff. Installing the intercooler setup. This is for a 92 to 95 Civic. It also does fit 96 to 2000 Civic and 1988 to 91 with some modifications. It's a really nice intercooler kit, and the reason I chose this one was because it has some pretty decent bins that I could use, and it was a fairly cheap product. You can make it even cheaper by using code THC at checkout. That's Texas Honda Channel THC, and save yourself some money. Really good product for sure. So there's no way I could have got any luckier. I am truly blessed, that's for sure, because this thing fits just perfect inside of here. Then you can put a bolt through the hole to find the center, which I know right where the center is. Mark it up here as well. Put a bolt through there, mark it there as well. And then you've got yourself a little template. So it'll be straight, you put it in a vise or something like that, and you can bend it, and then you will bend it again to where you got the right shape. Then you can make it out of metal, which this is real flimsy metal. I'm just using it as an example. Real easy to make the bends. So that way you've got a perfect little bracket. So it's a really inexpensive way to make your own bracket when they don't make a bracket for exactly what you're doing. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the grill off. That way we can have access in here, so I can start drilling the hole and putting the riv nuts in. All right, so for my first pipe, we got this one right here. I want that nipple on there, so if you were wondering, yes, I do want to keep that there because I need to run that to the back side of this intake manifold. But anyways, this will go in there just like this. Perfect. So it'll connect right up to the throttle. And if we go under here, it's sitting right here. I have this pipe right here with the blow-off valve spot, which I still have to get a blow-off valve. I went ahead and marked it. What I'm gonna do is run it here, then cut it here. Then from here, I will be putting this part and that part cut right there. So it'll have a perfect spot. Now obviously it'd be better to get all these pipes welded together instead of using coupler after coupler after coupler, because that's just gonna create or have a potential for more boost leaks. But I'm just doing what I can to get by, guys. Hope you guys understand that. All right, got it all on there. Fit pretty good. As for the passenger side, right here, we have the passenger side for the 9295 Civic type. I'm gonna basically just shove it up in there. And as you can see, it's gonna be perfect curve and everything yet again. So I'm gonna go ahead and chop the excess off because inside it curves towards the front. So I'm gonna cut it off right here at the curve. So that way it's a straight up into the engine bay. And go ahead and put the coupler on. So I'm gonna do that. I think I can make this actually work. So I'll go ahead and put it in this part down here first. Then put it in this part up here. I went ahead and painted the intercooler black and went ahead and put my stencil over the top and painted the stencil green. And this is what it looks like. I think it looks pretty nice, pretty stealth, but also you can kind of notice that it's there. So it looks good to me. I really like how this is turning out. Okay, so now I'm going to be putting on the blow-off valve and wastegate from Jackspania. It has a 7 psi spring in there. Basically just put it on a log manifold with MaXpeedingRods GT35 turbo. I do get the exhaust and wastegate dump done in the future, but I didn't get video of that, and Exhaust Shop did it. But after all of that said and done, we're going to go ahead and get the mounts, shifter, and then the drive shaft. So huge shout out to Joe for making me better versions of these. As you can see, these are absolutely terrible with my absolutely terrible welds, but they were just mock-up pieces so he could make a better version or improve on the version I have right here, which he decided to make better ones for obvious reasons. So as you can see over here, this is the steel plate that he made with way stronger welds and a lot thicker metal, and it is super solid. There's one like this that goes on the other side as well. Unfortunately, the camera doesn't fit very well underneath the intake manifold, but it's the same basic principle as this one. It's really solid and really good. Now this is the factory mount here, but it's just to absorb some of the vibrations. The other side is directly to the frame, so it is super solid. And here's the shifter that Sinformant sent. It's a lot nicer and it goes up taller. I am gonna have to get some bucket seats in here soon, just because when it, like, this is in reverse right now and it almost touches. I mean, it's pretty close, but I can't scoot the seat any further forward or it will hit it. This is actually a factory shift boot from an RX-8, since I'm running the RX-8 manual transmission, the 6-speed manual. This one here came out of the RX-8 I got this transmission from, so thought that'd be a pretty cool little touch. The drive shaft that I used to have in here, I custom mocked up myself, and it was not the best. It wasn't balanced, it was all wobbly, and so my max speed limit was like 25 to 30 miles an hour. So I sent the drive shaft all mocked up to Automotive Driveline, which is in Hurst, Texas. There's the information for the phone number. I'll leave the information in the description as well. They did a really good job with this shaft. This is a 23/25 spline for the RX-8 side of the transmission. They had one of those in stock, so that's awesome. Basically, he needed me to measure from center right here to center right here and get a proper measurement with it lifted up in the air and on the ground for proper measurements, because it is a slip yoke, so it slips in and out of the transmission when you raise it and lower it, or pull in or pull out, and we don't want it to pull out while driving. That would be terrible. So I got him all the information, and I sent him the shaft I had, and he made this bad boy for us. It is in really nice shape. So it was $421, which was not bad compared to all the other drive shaft companies that didn't even want to take this project on for whatever reason. They were the ones willing to do it, so they're getting a huge shout out on the channel. If you guys need drive shaft work, definitely hit them up. I'm not sponsored by them. I don't get anything out of this. I just want to tell you they're a really good company. But I'm gonna go ahead and get under the truck, put this in, and we'll see if we can go down the road with it. So here we go. All right, the shaft is installed. Now, back here at these bolts, make sure to torque them to the factory specs. Everything should be good to go. I want to show you right here, we have a 1/2 inch of yoke slip with it lifted all the way in the air. This is pushed in as far as this yoke will go with the suspension where it's at and everything. When I lower it down, it'll actually pull it out some. But this thing is about 6 inches long, so we have more than enough yoke slip for any bump that we hit. Because this is its all the way lifted up position, which tells me it's not going to pull out any farther than that or go in any farther than that. So this is absolutely perfect. Huge shout out again to them. Automotive Driveline Supply, Hurst, Texas. Did a really good job. But now I'm going to go ahead and put some fluid in here, and then we'll take it down the road. Okay, now I'm installing the intake pipe. It is off of a Chevy Avalanche. I cut the pipe shorter to fit on here. Now we've got that installed. To wrap this video up, because it is getting kind of long, I just wanted to show you I have a flexible radiator hose. It's stainless steel. I'll try to leave a link in the description. It goes all the way to the back, runs all the way to the inlet over there with a silicone 90-degree coupler. And I ended up running coolant lines up to the heater core, so we still have a hot heater. And I put the blower motor assembly back in. I chopped right here off, and then it's a really tight squeeze. That's why everything's header wrapped, but it doesn't affect the coolant temps. They stay perfect. And I used some of this metal tape stuff to basically make that blower motor assembly setup work, and it works great. I'm probably gonna fiberglass it and make it more solid, but it does work. I have the oil return line ran to the oil pan. The dump pipe and the exhaust run down there. I'll get under there real quick for you. Okay, so the exhaust shop made the 3-inch down pipe, and then the wastegate just dumps right there. Goes back to an electronic dump, which is a 3-inch outlet, and the back half is 2 1/4 to a MagnaFlow muffler, then straight out. So that's the exhaust setup. And this is ran to an electronic key fob. Basically, I can open it with the push of a button. So that way I can have open dump pipe for more power, or I can have it quiet for sleeper mode. Here's the oil feed. I have a T-piece with a oil pressure switch installed on there. The line runs around to the turbo. And I didn't do video of all of the other stuff like the gauges in here, but I will show them to you so you can see how everything turned out. This is the starting oil pressure, which is really, really good. Whenever it's warmed up, it's sitting right around 30 PSI, which is really good. We've got the vacuum gauge, boost gauge, the AEM wideband, which is running really rich because it's fresh startup. I didn't record all of that. Tried to just get it in there. And we've got this GPS, which works great for a speedometer. And then we've got the coolant gauge up here, which runs in. We still have tach right there, and all of that stuff works. The fuel gauge works. Speedometer right here does not. Coolant gauge right there does not. I tried to get that coolant gauge to work, the factory one. As soon as it started getting warm, like 120 degrees, it went straight to the overheating. So I just failed to use that one. I ended up putting a quick release steering wheel in as well. Got it for an F-150, the hub adapter from NRG. The F-150 hub adapter works. But yeah, everything's looking pretty good and working pretty good. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I tried to make it as quick and to the point as I could. There is some stuff that you may have to look through other videos if it wasn't detailed enough. I have about 16 or 17 videos spanning across this subject on the channel, so feel free to browse the other videos if I missed something. But yeah, I basically tried to make it as simple as I could. There's a few other things I did, like weld the diff up. Basically welded the diff. Instead of going and getting the 8.8 out of the Explorer, it was just simpler to weld the diff up. I do want to eventually get the 8.8 diff, so that way I have an LSD setup without it being welded diff all the time. But the welded diff is super fun. I still use the truck as a truck, so it has both fun aspect and work aspect in mind, and everything's doing really good on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it around on social media, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you share your stuff. Try to get the word out so now more people can have a K-swapped Ford Ranger / Mazda B2300, because this method works for both of them. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, please subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. As I like to say, God bless, stay safe, stay awesome.